He's a history professor at Kuwait University, former deputy chief of staff to two Kuwaiti prime ministers, and also worked as an advisor to Tony Blair. Welcome to the News Hour. I just want to get your reaction to what we've just heard there and how Gulf countries are preparing for the potential of no talks and also the resumption of attacks by Iran on Gulf countries.
The statement is misguided because the Gulf states never attacked Iran to begin with. And this is part of the war of narratives and the battle that's been unleashed by Iran and its proxies concerning the positioning of the Gulf states. We are no party to this war. The US bases have not been used against the Iranians, and the airspaces were also not touched by the Americans, even though different reports that are unverifiable speak the other way. We've held the responsible line, and we tried our best to maintain a defensive posture in the past 6 weeks, and that is the posture that, unfortunately, if war resumes, we will go back to. But hopes are high that amid all of this vagueness, confusion, and chaos that's happening on the negotiations or no negotiations, similar to what we saw during the war, that leads to some kind of an off-ramp for both the Iranians and the Americans, and that we can see some light at the end of the tunnel.
But Badr, right now, we don't know if those talks will take place at all in Islamabad. There's been no confirmation from the US, and we're hearing also that no confirmation from Iran. If attacks did restart, how devastating would this be for Gulf countries?
Look, both sides, Maria, are playing for time, and they're trying to maximize their gains through the psychological warfare that is ongoing even when the actual violence has stopped for a few weeks. And that will not bode well, because at the end of the day, they need to sit down, they need to talk, and we need to understand what the demands are from both sides. Which Iran are we talking to? Who has the ability to represent Iran? And how verifiable is Mr. Trump and the US administration when they commit to something? These are open questions. The Gulf states, to your question, will continue the course. They will continue defending their homelands and secure as much as they can to avoid being dragged into this war. This has been damaging, no doubt, in the past 6 weeks, but we have the resilience and the reservoirs, both financial, human abilities, and so on, to maintain ourselves and to fend off the attacks. This will continue. But I think what the Gulf states should also do is also connect with Iran and talk directly, irrespective of where the US-Iran negotiations go. This is our region. We need to determine what works best for the region, and that will entail having difficult conversations with our neighbors, including Iran.
And that point of the Gulf states talking directly to Iran, regardless of what happens right now in Pakistan between the US and Iran, how likely is that? And who would be your mediator? We know that there was China was the mediator between Saudi Arabia and Iran many years ago. Who would be that person that brings both of these parties together now?
Well, ideally, they would want to go to one another without having an interlocutor. And you've seen along these attacks ongoing, we've maintained the diplomatic lines with most of the Gulf capitals in Iran. So they need to continue these discussions, and they need to open up to ensure that more legal matters constitute the relationship moving forward. You can't blockade an international waterway and claim this to be an internationally recognized action. And the same thing, by the way, when the US blockaded the Iranian ports. I mean, two wrongs don't make a right. We understand that this is a reaction to Iranian aggression, but at the end of the day, the Americans are not going to be here when the Iranians decide to, unfortunately, that could happen. Precedent is upon us. They decide to blockade the Strait of Hormuz again. So that's why we need to hold steadfast to international norms, international treaties. We've worked for decades to enshrine them. And this is something that everyone in the world should be watching very closely. What happens in the Gulf will not remain in the Gulf. We would be setting very dangerous precedents for other waterways and other incidents across the world.
Absolutely. And just back to that point that the Gulf countries should talk directly to Iran. How would that happen? As you said, that they should speak directly without an interlocutor, but how quickly also could that happen? Because right now there isn't a country, anyone representing Gulf states directly in Islamabad.
And there should have been someone from the Gulf in there. Let me tell you, we shouldn't be left alone or sidelined as we did in the 2015 nuclear deal that was brokered between the US and a host of countries with Iran. The Gulf states are sharing the neighborhood and their voices should be heard. And look, we are pragmatic countries. The UAE was hit the hardest by Iran, yet you saw the vice president of the UAE speak with Ghalibaf a few days ago. You saw the Saudi foreign minister speak with the Iranian foreign minister a few days ago as well. And the conditions and discussions are also ongoing with the Qataris and with the Omanis. So this is the spirit that needs to move us forward. We are there to share the neighborhood together and to put everyone's interests together. Prosperity knows no boundaries, Maria. If we are to be prosperous on the Arab side of the Gulf, that prosperity would continue and fly over and travel to the Persian side of the Gulf. This is the spirit and the attitude of the Gulf states, and hopefully one that gets picked up by the Iranian establishment.
Absolutely. And of course, you are neighbours, you share the same waterway, or you're so close, each country to each other. How has the fact that there hasn't been retaliation from Gulf countries work as leverage with Iran?
That needs to be communicated very clearly back to Iran because they think otherwise in certain incidents. And that's why everyone needs to put away any suspicious doubts and to lay out the cards and the evidences rightly so. And we also need to show that we offer much more than good neighborly relations. We have economic might, we have the technology, and we have the advanced methods that can also help Iran as it gets out of its current economic conundrum. Don't forget, the war is only one element in a very long trajectory for Iran. They're going to go back to a fractured country, one that needs to be rebuilt, and that's where their attention and energy should be. This is where our attention and energy in the Gulf has been. And that's why we need to collaboratively work together towards positive goals. Unfortunately, this hasn't been the playbook of Iran in the last years and decades. We've had interventions from Iran, we've had sleeper cells uncovered, and this doesn't work well in a system, in a nation-state system. We need to treat each other equally, respectfully, and respect each other's sovereignty.
Al-Saif, fantastic to speak to you here on the NewsHour on TRT World. Thank you very much indeed for your time and for sharing your expertise and insights with us. Thank you.
Thank you.